All right, go for it.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to our weekly sync. Nice to see you all. I'm sorry I missed the last couple syncs, but I'm here today. Uh, I'm actually not clear on whether we have anything to demo today. I heard that we might have some designs that we want to demo. Does anyone know about that? No. Um, okay. Well, so I do think that we did have a learning module this week. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I guess before they did have they did work on designs, right? You all made designs or something?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Who wants to share? Is there a link to, I guess, like, what did you all do? Like, is there a like PowerPoint or like pictures or a Figma or?
You guys want me to share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. I can do that. Okay. Just give me one second. Okay. So we did work on design last week, or like this week. Okay. Can you guys see our screen? My screen?
Wow.
Yeah, this looks so good.
Awesome. It's really nice.
Thank you. So we took inspiration from a couple of different apps. Like we spied on like I think Nisha went and looked at other TCL groups. And at first, like the only reference that we had was the TCL-6 that they always talk about from the beginning. And that's a pretty simple design. So like in my head, I was thinking, oh, it'll be, a couple, changes and then we'll be good to go. But then Nisha found this other group that like went kind of above and beyond. Like they had like their own landing page and stuff. So we took a lot of inspiration on like their setup and their configuration for that. And then we all met together and we weren't sure like which direction we wanted to go to. So we all went together and saw one app that we kind of liked the look of and tried to implement that. So this is kind of a fusion of these two like ideas. And then the name of the ad for me really comes from Jeff had the idea of using mushroom growth to show how urgent, like the urgency of the purchases. And then from there, we went to Shroomy for like the name of the app. Nisha actually created the logo pretty much from scratch. So that was like pretty awesome. And then Jenna and I actually worked on like putting all of this together. And we have like two different versions of this. We have like this version for like the front page, and then also this version from the front page as well. We would love to hear some. We haven't really like narrowed down like which one we want to go for. If you guys have feedback or anything, actually Jenna put together the front page, so because we were talking about like making it look very funky and very like 70s inspired. So that's kind of where the direction that we went to. So we would love to hear like any like feedback from you guys in terms of like maybe like for me, like I'd love to hear like if there's any like watch outs to have in terms of like when we're going to build it. So some no-nos that we don't want to have, like for example, like we're planning on having this little tab here slide all the way up for like a transition between both pages. So like I don't know any type of like watch outs for maybe the size of the icons or like something like that. So yeah, we'd love to hear you guys' feedback. That's what we worked on last week, and we didn't actually start putting this together until until Wednesday, because there was like, you know, like last week there's a lot of things going on with everyone, and then like we had a complete loss in communication for like the first half of the week. So I'm really happy with what we came together, especially considering the amount of time that we worked on it. So like it really, I feel like it has like a piece of everyone inside of the design. So yeah.
That's awesome. This looks really good. This is
I liked
very
it a
exciting.
lot. I especially like the color scheme you guys have gone with.
Yeah. One thing that you I don't know if you've checked already, but just make sure to go back and check for the color contrast if you use one of those tools to see like if the white, I know sometimes like white on yellow can be hard sometimes. So I don't know if you need to swap that color out or, but yeah, this looks really cool. I like it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's everything. I don't know if anyone else from the team wanted to add anything to this. But
Looks awesome. I'm worried about the little curve at the end of each list, but that's gonna be a CSS fun times, I
this
think.
one, right?
Yeah, yeah, that one. I mean, like, it looks great, but like from a dev perspective, I'm thinking of how that's gonna
Just
work.
trying to think, just trying to think how we could style it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Jenna mentioned it, she was like, I don't know, because that's part of the other app that we saw. That's how they had it implemented.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
so Jenna was like, well, I don't know how we're gonna, make this happen. So we do have a contingency that if that doesn't work, we'll just have like regular kind of rounded.
Sure.
There you go.
If it's too hard.
But
Was the other app that you looked at, was it like deployed? Like, was it a website or was it like a video or?
So the PZ, it was called PZ. It's the shopping list. So there was another team. There was one app that was deployed, didn't quite work, but it was deployed. The other one that we took inspiration for, like the kind of the style and then the color scheme, was we looked up like good design patterns and we came in this website that had like a bunch of different things. So it was just like pictures and videos. So I don't know if it was deployed or anything.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah, but if you got to it, I was just gonna say, because like if it's a website on the internet, then you could always use the dev tools to inspect it and see how they style. Yeah, I'm not excellent at CSS, so that's what I always do is like go in and like turn stuff on and off to see like what does this do? What does this do?
That's a really great idea. I might have to try and see. I know it's a phone app, so I don't know if they have like a website, but
true.
It's worth looking into it.
Yeah.
Save us like a lot of headaches. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, phone apps are totally different set of headaches you have to worry about. I liked how the add button is super big. That's nice. For like older folks. I'm not sure if the garbage icon is big enough, but I don't know. Not sure. But the way you guys designed it, where it's like product, you guys as product designers, like, we want to do this, and you didn't really care about how hard it was. That's the way it should be done, because that's the way it is done. Product will just come be like, this is what we want. We're like, that's literally impossible. Like, but we really want. It's like, okay, I guess we'll figure it out. Like that's yeah.
And did you guys say that you were still trying to decide between like this version and the other that you showed previously?
Yes. That's correct.
What's the two versions?
Is it like the homepage that's the difference?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the homepage that's different.
Okay.
Yeah. Versions.
Well, I personally really like the first one, but that's just my opinion.
Cool.
They both look great.
It's this one, right? Okay. Favorite. Put it in out. Thank you.
That won't work.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess I can stop sharing my screen.
Yeah. Can you drop a link to that in the Slack?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very messy, just
FYI.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a nice part. Like you have like all the story of everything that happened.
Yeah. It's cool to see. I like to see the like growth, like the trajectory, like the mushrooms, the growth of the project. It's meta.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I think now we should continue on to the learning module. And I think Jason, you're going to be handling the learning module this week.
I am. I
Cool.
just need to figure out how to get this going. Cool. That's that. That's that. Cool. That thing. Great. So this is learning module on. Oh, did I should throw? I know, I'm good. On communication, right? Sorry, communication for devs. Communication is key. I take issue with using the JavaScript equals, but that's fine. Yeah, communication in development is key. Whether you're talking about how you code stuff or how you talk to other people or how you leave artifact behind for people to understand what's going on is so important. It's important for you as a professional. It's important for you to maintain things later on. It's important as a sign of professionalism that people can see that will help you later on in your career. It's key. I guess we're talking about documentation today. Okay, the why. Why did I do it again? Sure. So is this about code? Okay. So this is about documentation just like on a side wiki and like on like institutional documentation software. Yeah, it's great for having a nice paper trail for why things happen. So number 3 is super important. Because often when you come back and you want to rewrite things or you want to refactor things, there are edge cases that you didn't really think about, which are really important to keep in mind. And you only really have that in documentation because it's hard to really keep that anywhere else. Number 2 is something I do all the time because writing things does help you learn. Often when I'm stuck in a problem, like a really hard problem, I just start writing it out. And the more you try to express it in words, it's kind of the rubber ducky issue. You start to realize what actually is a problem. Yeah, and I absolutely do use number 1. What did I do again? I have an ongoing just normal text file on my desktop. It's called To Do, and every day I just talk about what I did, where I was going with it. And oftentimes when I'm like in some crazy red herring, like chasing something really difficult, I'm writing on every step so I can go back and figure out what the heck's going on later on, or if I get the same problem in the future. Yeah, and then of course 4, onboarding new team members is really, really key and important. Great, yeah, and 5 and 6 are sort of the same thing. Institutional knowledge, I think what they mean by that is like tribal knowledge. So it's sort of the same thing, which is really important things that people just know that if you just throw a new member in, will make horrible mistakes and probably bring down production or something horrible. So having those things explicit, written down is really important. How? Okay, quick tips, right? For the person who knows the least, absolutely, 100%. Sometimes you'll find when you start reading documentation, it'll just be littered with lots of acronyms and things that they assume you'll know. So that's something to keep in mind as you write your documentation for the people behind you. Great. Optimize for the person who needs a quick reference formatting. This is something I see even senior devs don't do, but it's, yeah, put things in headings, put things away, bold things, separate things out. Oftentimes I'll see devs just like do a huge wall of text, and it's like the most daunting thing to like digest and to understand. And it just takes more work for you to think about and break it down into really digestible chunks. But again, it's great for your career. It's great for communication. It's great for everything. And it's something that people don't think about often enough. There's a documentation sample there. I think this is basically talking about like code docs. Yeah, code docs. Okay, pull requests. Whoops, sorry. You guys have already been doing this, but yeah, it gives reviewers context of your code. Big part of interviewing is talking and walking through the code. Having a robust PR description helps you remember what you did. 100%, 100%. Also, in the process of writing your PR description, helps you think about the thing you're about to commit and have people review. And unless you think about, did I actually fix that thing, or did I go down a track that had no bearing, and I totally forgot about the actual thing I was supposed to fix. This is PR, so screenshots, GIFs, and videos. Personally, I've never done screenshots, GIFs, or videos, but you know, it depends on the culture, and I guess on how complicated the PR is. Links to resources and permalinks, that can be important, especially if you do things like you're starting to use an external library. That's important for the fix. You want to say, well, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. And self-review before asking others to review your code. Yeah, absolutely. And keep PR small and narrowly scoped. Yeah, that's a good tip for just PRs in general. And there's a great PR description in the links. Comments in code. Okay. Gives your team more context while they're actively tracing through the code that you implemented. And codes can in some ways be self-documenting, but the decisions behind the codes are not always self-apparent. So if you really think about your variable names and your method names and how cleanly you're writing your code, that can really help that's what's called self-documenting code. So instead of having a huge bit of complex stuff, you can wrap it into a method that really describes what that complex bit is doing. Just have that method in the call stack. That's way easier to parse. But sometimes there's edge cases and there's weird reasons for doing things. Like in one case, I was writing software that was like importing, CSVs, comment delimited files, and sometimes it imported from Windows and sometimes imported from Linux. I had to do some horrible things, and I had to document that. Like this is actually why we're doing this, and and those things are not super duper apparent with just code. What to write? Focus on why this code was written rather than what the code does. Yes, absolutely. Hopefully, what the code does is pretty clear from how cleanly you write the code. And then here's a great example for code comments. You can come back and look at this. Okay, brainstorm. I guess we're feedback. What have your experiences with documentation, PR descriptions, code comments, etc. been like? Anyone? I can roll a dice. We'll roll a dice. Hold on a second. Okay. Dice roll. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. There's 6. I'm gonna kill that. I'm gonna roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jeff. What have been your experience with documentation? Any sort of documentation I was talking about.
Let's say the one of the projects that I was working on, I kind of used my README as like a to-do list, kind of in the way that you talked about it on paper. And I had like these big overall features for the game mechanics that I wanted. So I just put it all out there, and then as I went through it, I could update it and change it once I found out what worked and what didn't.
Awesome. Awesome.
How did that work out? Like, did you like that experience? Like, was that helpful for you, or did you like learn anything along the way?
Yeah, one of the things that was hard for me to do was I didn't know how to deploy a React page. Like it's easy to deploy other pages, but not React specifically. And I found a not very good way to do it, but it worked. But I put it down at the very bottom in case I needed to refer back to it. But I think there's like another way because the way it did it, I would have to do like npm run build and then push it, and then it would update to my deployments. But I believe there's an easier way if I change the scripts, and I just haven't gotten to figure it out yet.
That's like half of what my personal notes are, is like, here's like half of an idea. I'll come back to it later, like once I find this a note again. But without a note, like I totally would forget and would never go back. So
awesome. Roll the dice again one more time. Roll. Oh, Megan, it's your turn.
Well, I actually, a couple jobs ago, I worked as like a documentation engineer. So I was responsible for our docs site and like making sure that new features were documented. So like working with the engineers to be like, all right, you built this thing, but if we don't tell people that it exists, nobody will know to use it. So I feel very strongly about documentation. There's actually there's a book that I really like that, here, I'll drop the link in the chat, but it's called Docs for Developers. And it's got a really good like intro to here are the different kinds of documentation. Like here's how you can structure your docs. Here's kind of like a step-by-step walks you through the process of building out a good documentation experience for your project. But yeah, my personal stance is that like if it's not if it's not documented, then it's not done. Like if you ship a feature, but there are no docs, like you're not done yet. I've heard other people use the phrase, it's a little morbid, but like if somebody on your team gets hit by a bus, like you don't want all of the things that they know to leave when they're like out on PTO. Like you want to make sure that all of the information that you need to be successful at your job is written down somewhere so that you have easy access to it.
It's called the bus factor, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which is like,
Factor.
there's got to be a better phrase for that, but
that's like kind of a red flag as you guys go into jobs. Just check out the bus factor. If the bus factor is really high, if like 1 and 2 people know like everything there's to know, if they're gone, like it's toast, it's not probably the best place to be.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's tough to find things too, because then anytime that you get stuck, you need to go and like ask another human to be like, hey, stop what you're doing and come help me. Whereas if it's documented, at least you have that first line of defense, right? You can like do a little bit of digging on your own to find stuff out, and then go and ask like a more specific question. So I love docs.
It's funny about docs, especially when you're talking about docs that face other developers. So if you're a SaaS company and you expose docs to client developers, a lot of developers are like, I don't want to do docs. But it's like, what's the first thing that developers think about before they take up a library? Is the documentation any good?
Yeah,
So
totally.
is that funny? Like, don't you realize the thing you just said? Yeah. Cool.
I just wanted to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to add that you mentioned the importance of kind of writing documentation for the person in back of you, and that stuck out to me just because when I was first joining my team at work, one of the earliest issues I sort of had was that a lot of the documentation, specifically like PR request descriptions and things like that, were kind of written with the assumption that the person reading it, knows certain things. Might use some jargon or acronyms I wasn't familiar with, and that was one of the things that I brought up at one of my first retros was that I kind of like in my opinion, I think some of the best documentation is kind of written almost. It sounds kind of bad, but almost like it's written for a baby to understand it. Like I think you should, when writing documentation, be very specific, even if you're sure that the people reading it know. Like never make that assumption just because there might be someone new on the team.
Yeah. Another thing that I like to do in that sort of scenario is like if you're writing a doc that is on a more advanced topic, you can still have at the beginning, you can have like a list of prereqs of like, here are other places to go. If you don't already know these concepts, go check out these docs first. Or even like inline, if it's like, hey, if you don't know about this topic that we're using in some step, then like, here's a link to where you can learn more. So exactly like what you're saying, like making sure that everybody's got the right level of information.
I wanted to ask because like the documentation is like the hardest part for me because I find it to be this boring thing that I have to do after I'm done with what I'm supposed to be doing. And I love when you said, Megan, that like you don't consider a feature done until the documentation is done. So that helps with like kind of reframing how like I go about like mentally setting the goalpost for the end. But I'm curious, like the documentation is like an always like kind of in progress work. So like if you have like a customer story that you're trying to finish, you can check and say, yes, I finished that, and then move on to the next one. But then how do you know what's a good stopping point? Because for example, like you could go very deep, but it's not necessary. You don't have to, right? Like it's like, for example, I don't know, it's like you don't have to go like super, super deep, but at the same time, like where is that I've documented enough for you guys? Like, yeah. Because I've seen like tutorials, for example, that Like they're going to talk about a very complex problem and concept, but they're talking about like the basics of a DOM document. I'm like, if you don't understand this at a base level, you probably shouldn't be listening to this tutorial in the first place, because you're still not gonna get it, you know? Like, so like having a prerequisite saying, okay, well, you need to know this, this, and this, and then we'll be able to go into that. Like that makes sense. But like, if you know you're documenting whether like a website building or like an ad feature, like where do you put that line of I've documented enough, or I need to go a little bit further, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that it's something that you sort of develop a little bit of an intuition for it as you're going. For me, the kinds of questions that I ask myself, well, to start out, like, you're probably not going to build a doc site from scratch, right? Like you'll join an existing project. They'll already have some documentation. So then whenever I'm making changes to a feature, the questions that I'm asking myself are like, okay, what context do I have in my brain right now that when I come back to this problem in like 6 months, I'm not going to remember those details of like why this decision was made, or like what, sometimes there will be like a random line of code where it's like, I know that I added this to fix something, but what was that thing? Like those are the kinds of things that I try to write down in the documentation, or if it's not enough, if it's not like pertinent to everybody, instead of putting in the docs, I'll put it in like the issue, like in the ticket, just so that it's like the ticket then can be the sort of source of truth of like, here's the journey of this like of this piece of work and like all the decisions that were made and the problems that I ran into, so that it's there for somebody to access, maybe not always like the end user. But yeah, mostly about trying to capture context that's in my brain at the moment when I'm working on the feature. What about other folks? Do you have other approaches?
I would say if there's something that's a really interesting edge case and you can unit test for it, you should absolutely do that. Because that way, when someone says, what is this line? Doesn't make any sense. Don't understand it. They remove it and then they run the suite. It's like it breaks. Like, oh, this is important enough that this person had to think about the unit test and wrote the unit test. So I guess it's important, right? And within that unit test, you'll have assert this because blah, 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 right? And that helps people like sort of munge with the code and figure out why it's doing what it's doing. But yeah, where to stop it really depends on the audience you're talking to. So like if I'm at the code level, I usually don't document that much in line because I try to write as clean as I can and then unit test against that. But when I can't, when there's a weird exception, I'll write knowing the context that this is a programmer, they understand most of these things are going on. And it's usually a business reason that I'm documenting. It's not like a code reason. And then as you get further and further up, then you start getting, now I have to think about the context. So when you get to the level of like Confluence or whatever else people use, SharePoint or whatever wiki, like a general documentation site that's not linked to code, then you have to really think about, okay, I got to think about context. I got to keep it really high level, hopefully use diagrams as much as I can. Yeah. Any other questions or concerns? But I will say that documentation is one of those things that, like unit tests, and to some degree, like pair program, where it's very variable according to the company. And some companies are gung-ho, and some companies, particularly startups, absolutely do not. So I think it's always good to push for it, but be aware of the culture you're in. But if you work for like a defense contractor, everything's going to be really down the line. The documentation is going to be like down to the last rivet, right? So it depends. Cool.
And Megan, we're not having a retro this week. That correct?
Yeah, that'll be next week. Next week will be our last retro.
Okay. Do we want to go over the issues? I don't remember if or I wasn't here for the last one, so I don't know if the issues that are currently in the repo have been gone over yet.
Yeah. So Jason, was this the last slide for the?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, so I think for issues, this is sort of the freeform week where you all have your designs now. And so now instead of us providing the issues for you. Now it's up to you to decide how you want to break up the work for implementing your styles and go from there. So it's a little wild this time. Did you talk at all about how you wanted to break down the work? Nina, if you're talking, you're muted.
And not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys had from looking at the design, because I was thinking like there's two of us, there's two teams, and there's 3 pages. So from like what you guys saw, what would you recommend would be the breakdown between the two? Because
Yeah. Are there 2? So it'll end up probably being like one team works on 1 and then one team works on 2. Are there like, is there a particular set of pages that you think is easier, or like one that you think is the hardest? Because that would be how I would divvy it up, is be like, here's 2 that are a little easier, so give that to one group, and then one group can work on the harder one. I guess we could pull it up again and peek around at it.
We can share the screen.
Because the other thing that you could do is just make 3 separate issues, right? Like make a separate one for each page, and then just pick the 2 most important ones to start, and then whichever team finishes first can pick up the next one.
I think that's a great idea, actually.
And that's probably closer to what it would be like in a real world scenario, where usually it's like, here's a list of stuff we know we have to get to, and then you only do one thing at a time.
Yeah. Okay. I think I like that a lot. What do you guys think? Because we can do like, I think this page is going to be fairly easy to put together, but these 2 are going to be more complex. So I think if we can, like, if we split it in like 2, one of each, and then we can kind of work on whatever is remaining together, I think that could work. You guys are okay with that? Okay. I saw head nods, so I think that's good.
Yeah, whatever you all think, because you're going to be the ones who have to do it. So,
Okay. And was there anything else we wanted to go over?
Well, I think we should probably talk through a little bit of just like, maybe we can make the issues for those tasks, however you want to divvy it up, just so that everybody's name is assigned to a thing. Let's see, who are the pairs this week? We've got, what's today? Okay, so Nina and Jeff and Jenna and Nisha. Do you all have, or who wants to work on what?
And these are just to clarify, I'm sorry, these are these the issues that are currently on the repo?
I think they're not on the repo yet, so
okay,
that's
I see.
part of what. Well, actually, here, yeah, we should have one of the
okay, we're creating new
collabs.
issues.
Yeah, we should have one of the collabs share their screen, and then like add the stuff, and then we can put people's names on them. I liked your dice. How did you get that, Jason?
I just Googled dice roller.
Oh.
I think, is that Google? I think dice. Yeah, you literally Google dice roller, and there's all sorts of dice you can add there. And if you click on it, it goes away, and you can select a different one.
Technology, look at us.
I know.
Oh, okay. Well, here, I can share my screen so that you all know that I'm not lying. But here. I'm just gonna roll a 4-sided because we're gonna have one of the collabs do it. Okay, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, Jenna, you're gonna open up what is this? Open up GitHub and be our like scribe to help write down all of the issues that we're gonna divvy up for this week.
Okay. TCL-53. All right.
Okay, so we said divvy it up by the page. So, or I guess which view to implement the styles for.
Who's typing?
No. I'm not sure what to type.
Oh, okay. So you can make a separate issue for each view. So like one for
Okay.
implementing styles for the what are they called?
La-
Like one
landing
is the
page?
home page,
Landing
one is
page, yeah.
the
Okay.
home
yeah.
list add item. Thanks, Nina. So you'll have a
Um,
separate page for each one, or a separate issue for each one.
Gotcha. Do I just submit the new issue? Do we want any comments or?
Yeah, so this would be an example of where you would use the like documentation kind of tips from or that Jason talked about. For now, to save time, you can probably just submit
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can always come back and edit it later. All right. That's one of the views, landing page. There's the add item tab. I know it's a view, but we were thinking of going with like a tab pull up
Nice.
style for
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So there's that. And then the third would be the list view itself of all the items. All right. Yeah, so I added 3 if
Sweet.
you guys could think of anything else outside of that. I'm not sure.
I think that, well, I don't know, Megan, Jason, do you guys have any? I think that about covers it.
I think we had talked about doing the what is it called? Like the how it works page. It doesn't,
Mhm.
it's a kind of optional
Mm.
thing, but we can add it just so that it's there. If we get to it, we do, but
Sweet. Okay, so now we've got 4 of these. So which of the 2 do you all want to start with? Like which 2 would you prioritize as the most important?
I'd say definitely the add item tab and the list view, since that's the core functionality. And then the other 2 is I'd say more decorative.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. So of those 2, I guess Jenna, since you well, we're talking before, is there one that you would prefer to work on, you and Nisha?
I have the power.
Yeah.
All right. I'm
Or
gonna
Nisha,
take
if you
this
have any
one
thoughts too.
since
There you go.
okay, yeah. Nisha. Nina and Jeff, good luck with the spinny thing and the pulling up mechanism. I will definitely be sitting on the sidelines watching that.
don't forget you have to do the whole swoop
Oh no.
thing too. There's no good answer.
Gonna learn a lot about CSS. I remember you can always do it in stages, right? Of like, let's just get it looking good enough and then decide which of the pieces are the like extra sprinkles style on top.
Yeah.
Everything I've learned in programming has been against my will.
Same, honestly.
Same.
Just make you stronger. Just make you stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
but starting from a place of like, oh, that makes sense, and slowly building it is so key. Like I'm looking back at some old stuff I'm working on just for fun, like my big Python game, which is like it was kind of like Missile Command. It was really
Ooh.
complicated. There's a lot of things going on, but when I looked at the name of the exe, it was called Beginner Game Exe because that basically started from the beginner and just iteratively added and never got back to change it, and just added it until it became this massive thing. So
That's funny.
All right, I assigned the issues to everybody.
Sweet.
Great. Cool. And let's see. Is there anything else on our agenda for today? No,
I
don't
think that's
so.
it. Yeah, unless you all had any questions.
I just want to say this is going to be the probably some of the toughest stuff you guys are going to do because it's like I don't know, do it. Like these are not things that previous groups have necessarily done, so we know there's a path. This is stuff you guys made up, so it's going to be tough. So I want to see like a lot of chatter in the chat room so we can chat about it and talk about it, as opposed to just getting stuck and just like sweating,
Yeah,
cold sweat.
yeah.
'cause-
There's also the whole cohort. Like if you wanted to chat with people on other collabs that are running at the same time, you could post in there and be like, hey, did anybody run into this thing? Or like, what do your styles look like? So you can chat with each other, you can chat with us, you can chat with them.
one last thing. I have one last pro tip about documentation, which I learned like a few weeks ago. And at our company, we have it's like 700 people. We have a massive Slack, right? And one of them is like one of the guys was saying, sometimes when I run into a really hard problem, I just search Slack for like that error because people will talk about that error, and he'll go to some weird like channel that he's never seen, but like they'll talk about it. So then not only does he search that way, but then when he has questions, he'll be very explicit about the error he's having, so further people can. Anyways, I thought it was really cool.
That's smart.
Yeah. I've had to do that a couple of times. It does kind of come in handy. And I also just wanted to restate that you guys did a really fantastic job on the designs. I'm really eager to see how you're able to bring them to life. And good luck with the next couple of issues. And fantastic work as always. So I think that about does it. So if you guys want, we can let you go.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.